Alok. Welcome to the Pet Talks series. I'm happy to have you as part of the Pet Talks. Uh, you know,
Hi,
we've,
Shruti.
Hi. So, just to introduce you as a quick brief, I have known you for the longest now, and it's been a pleasure working with you in multiple occasions around Kerala floods, and even now during the COVID-19 situation. And I think HSI as an organization and you as an individual in the rescue animal welfare space, you don't need an introduction. But it's always great for anybody who's listening to this to know what you do. Because the whole idea of having this conversation with you is for me to be able to tell the world about what I know of you and what HSI does, right? And I think the international uh, vertical of HSI has been great in terms of what they do, but it's also a privilege that they chose to start HSI India, and I think that's a big move. So, yeah, an introduction to yourself, Alok, and HSI, and then we'll take the discussion forward to make it more interesting around around all the work that you do.
All right. Okay. So, hi, I'm Alokparna. I'm the Interim Managing Director for Humane Society International India. So, Humane Society International, or HSI India, is part of HSI, which is the world's largest animal protection organization, along with the Humane Society of the United States. So we are divided into three parts actually. One is Humane Society of the United States, which is a 60-year-old animal protection organization, more than 60 years old. Then it's Humane Society International, which works around all countries other than the United States, which is headquartered in Washington, D.C. And then there are affiliates. So we work in around 50 countries, including India, and we have offices in about 23 countries. And India was one of the first 3 countries where we had offices outside of the US. So we were, in fact, very honored and privileged, also because there's a need to have an office. I think after UK and Canada, India was the first office after that. So we in India have been here for about 8 years now. So 2012 is when we got registered. And we work on all. I mean, we pride ourselves in being an organization which works on all animal protection issues,
right.
Whether it's street dogs, animals in farm animals, animals in laboratories, wildlife, cruelty, anything and everything that you can find, which is of course not being done by others. Where there is a loophole, where there is a dearth of people working on it, you'll find us there.
Very nice. I think I've kind of known HSI better during the Kerala floods time, even though I've been in the organization for a long time now. The work that you guys did during the Kerala floods, bringing different regions together, I think that was what is inspiring forever, right? And even now during the COVID-19 situation, I see you creating a lot of awareness about how people should not abandon pets. It's amazing how in such a short time you're actually creating short films to kind of put the message out there, bringing in influencers. It's so one. I want to touch a point about why HSI decided to start in India. You said it's a need. Of course, we all know it's a need, but how did the whole idea of the organization starting its main branch in India come about?
One of the reasons for HSI starting was that when the Humane Society of the United States was starting to get very successful in the US, what they realized was that the cruelty was not ending at the US, it was just getting transferred to other countries. And that is one of the reasons Humane Society International started. And so it started, from the US, it started going into Latin America and Europe and Asia. So when Humane Society International started in 1992, we started a lot later, 2012. But we are one of the largest. We have the largest population of dogs, 30 million dogs in the country, street dogs in the country. We have the third largest number of egg-laying hens. We are the largest producers of milk, largest exporters of leather. We have huge number of contract research organizations where animal testing is done. So there are obviously a number of animal issues, animal welfare issues, and with or without protection for the animals. So that's why, because there was a need, because the industry is booming here, and if there is no protection for the animals which are being used, then it would just go on to a level where we couldn't stop it later. That's why India was such a key place to start the organization in.
Right. So, what has been the impact so far? Like, how's the journey been for HSI India? In terms of you actually being able to reach to the number of animals out there and being able to contribute in terms of welfare. Both. So we're talking about three parts, right? One is the native animals, the strays, and the stray dogs and the stray animals. Second part is about people using animals for the wrong reasons. It could be the wrong breeding methods, or anything in that space. The third being particularly the leather exports and farm animals, and importantly, the testing on animals, right? In terms of cosmetics. So, what has been the impact so far on each of these areas?
So, since 2012, I mean, I came in as a campaign manager on the cosmetic testing campaign, in fact. So we worked with, and it was the first time that we worked with the entire country's members of parliament. So we wrote to every member of parliament. So there is a notion that animal welfare people are just, they're coming, they're emotional, they cry to you for the plight of animals, and that's it. And any external stakeholder has an assumption of animal welfare people, advocates like that. So we really want to work for animals like it's a business, because people who are into cruelty of animals treat it like a business.
Yeah.
So when we started our cosmetic testing campaign, which was the Be Cruelty Free campaign, we wrote to our members of parliament asking them for support. And that was the time when Europe, which is the largest cosmetics market, was also banning animal tests and banning the sale of it.
Right.
So what better way than a country with a population of 1.2 billion at that point, removing animals from their cosmetic testing. So that was our first victory. In fact, after the cosmetic testing ban had come in, we wrote to the government for import and sales ban, and more than 40 MPs wrote to the health ministry. So it was not just that animal activists crying and telling them, but MPs had their buy-in on this. So those are the kind of impacts we've had. So shark finning ban. So India is the third largest shark catching nation, and the fins are exported to Vietnam and China for shark fin soup. Not Vietnam, I think Vietnam, Hong Kong and China for shark fin soup. So we helped come up with a shark fins attached policy where you couldn't just fin the animals and drop the animals in without the fins in the sea, but you had to get the entire animal. And then we worked to completely stop banning shark finning. So we've always had an incremental approach, because just going in and saying, okay, we want this stopped, does not work anywhere. So you have to come at it with different angles. Since then, we've worked on so many campaigns. Gadi Mai, getting a Supreme Court order ban to prohibit transport of animals from India to Nepal for an animal sacrifice event. Banning of wildlife trade at Sonpur Mela. We had a role to play in the banning of dolphinariums in India. They were trying to get dolphinariums in India, and we stopped that in 2012, 13, 14, I think. I mean, it's been a huge journey, and we mainly work through capacity building and policy change. And whatever we do, we want the government and government's buy-in, because once a policy comes in place, it stays for a long time. And if the government has a buy-in on it, we can ensure that it will be sustainable. So for example, even street dog spay and neuter, we work with the state governments and the municipalities to ensure that the street government and the state government and HSI works together to do spay and neuter and animal birth control. So it's not that NGOs constantly keep doing it and they are just doing nothing. So it's a joint effort all the way.
Amazing. And it's a constant effort, right? It's not something that we try and do it for a few months and then we stop at that, right? It's
Yeah.
not something that ends with a short time. So how big is the HSI team in India, and are all of them volunteers? Or do you work with NGOs in the country? Can NGOs partner with HSI to kind of extend their services? What is the model like?
So we are about 100, 110, 120 staff in India, including vets, paravets, drivers, catchers, animal welfare officers, campaign managers, and admin, HR, everyone. So we are spread across India in different states. Uh, we actually work with everyone. So we are a big tent organization in the sense that you don't, as long as you have something to do with little bit where you're, even if you don't want to directly influence animal welfare, but a way of your achieving your aim is to influence animal welfare, we welcome you to our tent. So I pride HSI prides itself in being a big tent organization, and we partner with everyone. So a lot of organizations we've partnered with. So if anybody wants to work with us, if any organization wants to partner with us, they just have to write us an email. And if it falls within the realm of our capacity, we will definitely partner with them.
Great. And just for everybody to know, Alok is based in Hyderabad. So if there is anybody in Hyderabad who wants to reach out and maybe see all the work that's being done, might be a good idea for, right, Alok? I mean, it might be a good
Definitely.
idea.
Write to me at asengupta@hsi.org and reach out to me. And if you are based out of somewhere else other than Hyderabad, also we have staff in about 10 to 12 different cities. We are happy to talk to you, welcome you, get you to do more on animal welfare.
Right.
Even if you're not doing it, we'll get you to do it.
Yeah, at least we'll get you aware of it and make you more sensitive to the amount of cruelty that happens out there. You know, it has been quite a journey for me as well. I think I've always been sensitive to animals, but sometimes you're just so lost in your usual lives that you don't pay attention to these little things. Like when you use cosmetics, you don't really look at the brand and say, okay, do they test on animals, right? When you buy a nice bag, you don't really pay attention to say, is this leather, is this by animals, right? But the thing is, once you are sensitive to the thought of animals, and once you have an awareness of what all goes through with animals to kind of manufacture these products, your mindset just shifts, right?
Yep.
I just want people to know also that it's not the case of we don't like bags anymore, we don't like fancy stuff anymore. It is just that you start finding good alternatives to leather and to animal tested products, and there are so many out there. It's just a matter of us putting that extra bit of effort to find products which are suitable, right, and which are good.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And world over, this is animal testing, for example, is becoming animal testing on cosmetics is almost dead now. So in 39 countries they have banned animal testing. So it very soon all over it will be animal testing for cosmetics will be history. And hopefully next 2 generations down the line, people will laugh at us when they say, animals used to be tested on cosmetics, for what reason? Technologically we are advancing so much, so why should we use animals? At one point there might have been a need, there might have not been much technologies then, but right now we have technologies. Same for food, plant-based food, cell-based food is now coming up. And we are working with an organization called Center for Cellular and Molecular Biology in Hyderabad. If these things can come, and alternatives like pleather, and for example a product like Baggett, I don't know if I'm supposed to use product names, brand names, but Baggett completely cruelty free.
Yeah.
So you don't, and do you even feel the difference in leather or not leather? I don't think so.
Popular brands, and
yeah,
I think even in terms
and the
of
biggest brands in the world have now gone fur free. So animal cruelty is passé.
Yeah, I mean, it is something to feel happy about. End of the day, we should feel good about ourselves when we know that we're not using products which is kind of which are cruelty free. That satisfaction is very different. So I'm not sure if we should do this, Alok. I'm taking your suggestion here. Do you want to just give a quick understanding of what happens in animal testing labs? Because that's where the change starts, right? Like most people, I'm
Mhm.
sure, who are not sensitive are probably people who don't really know what goes into it. um, so just like in one two liners, just to get the sense of it, would you want to tell about what happens with testing? Like, how is it done?
Okay. So any sort of product around you, whether it's this paint, varnish, the paint on my specs, my lipstick, my kajal, anything and everything, drugs, medical devices, everything is tested on animals.
Right.
So there are different categories and there are different regulations for testing on animals. Of course, cosmetic testing, some household chemicals are now no more tested. But there are different ways of testing also. One is skin sensitization. So chemicals are rubbed onto the animal's shaved skin and see how corrosive it is. So if it is burned, if there are allergic reactions, if there are long-term allergic reactions, which are like sensitization of this thing, for drugs and for, say, deodorants and gaseous and aerosol substances, uh, you know, inhalation tests are done. So animal tests are divided into acute, chronic, acute, subacute, and chronic tests. So acute are for 14 to 28 days, subacute are for 90 days. So the animals are treated with those chemicals for those many days. And chronic tests, usually for drugs, are for more than 2 years. So these are those cancer tests, other tests. So a huge range and variety of animals are used, from rats and mice to dogs and monkeys. So tested on skin, smoke is made, animals are made to inhale smoke for hours together to see if some tests, give breathing problems or not. If they are toxic when left in the air, that sort of thing. Injected liver, all sorts of toxicity tests. So to see what organ, which part of the body is affected by the said chemical. And of course, the problem with animal tests is that because the different kinds of animals that are used,
Yeah.
the dose is so small. So even if you're testing on a rat, the dose is like minuscule of what a human will be given for a drug, for example. So it is always extrapolated. So animal tests are actually 50 to 60% accurate only, and we are using them for the past 100 years. So but there people think that when non-animal tests need to come, they need to be 100% accurate. And regulators still have a problem if they're 80% accurate, forgetting that animals are just 60% accurate. So so those kind of tests are used, and I won't go into detail because if I go into too much detail, it will be too traumatic. But you can look into, right now the scientific community is moving forward and the government is trying to invest into non-animal technologies, and alternatives such as lung on chip, liver on chip, those kind of things are being brought into place. Robots are being brought into place, and it's only a matter of a few years before we replace animals.
Good job. Good job by HSI. Good job by all the organizations who come forward. If it is, just think about it this way, right? If it is so traumatic for us to hear what happens in the lab, I won't be surprised if a lot of people just pause here and say, okay, I can't listen to this anymore. But if it is so hard for us to listen to what happens, I just can't imagine what the animals actually go through, right? And
Yeah.
Also, Alok, since most people relate to dogs, right? We relate suffering with dogs more than any other animals because we're the closest to dogs when we look at the different sorts of animals. So, I know for sure that beagles are used a lot in lab testing. It might help if you could just say a little bit about where beagles are used and why beagles of all the different
So
beagles.
it's the most tragic reason actually why beagles are used, because they're not used because there is some similarity between beagles and humans. Beagles are used because in size they are medium to small, And because their temperament is very nice, and they don't create a fuss when testing. So it's really tragic that because of their nice behavior, they are used for testing. But beagles are generally used for drug testing, pesticide testing, and others like that, which are 90 days to 2 year studies, those kind of studies. So right now, I think in pesticides and cosmetics, beagles were never used, at least in the recent modern testing, these things. The 90-day dog study has been removed in most countries, where a chemical was put on a dog and made, the dog was made to ingest it constantly. So beyond 90-day studies, either dogs or monkeys are the choice. So you have to choose between dogs or monkeys. And because dogs are easier to breed and find, dogs are mostly used. Very few places actually use monkeys.
Right. Thanks for sharing all the information. I think it's important for everybody to know what happens there. Unless the message goes out, it's not something that people will be aware. So I'm hoping that with this conversation, we will be able to have more people think about their choices, make the right choices, and make the cruelty-free choices as much as possible. Right. Of course, it's not an overnight thing. It's not that we see this video and then tomorrow we're like, okay, I'm going to throw away all my bags or all my cosmetics. But change is always the first step, right? At least going forward, starting today, if you're able to make a good choice, better late than never, right?
Yeah, and it's just choice. It's just, I mean, we have the buying power. The least we need to do is pick up something other than the other. I mean, something which is less cruel than the other. So
I mean, that's the way
that's the least we have to do.
Exactly, and that's the way we can, have the companies which are testing on animals also to look at other ways of doing it. The point is that, I have a lot of people who say, okay, just by buying one lipstick, it's not that they're going to stop. That will anyway continue. The point is, it's not the question of that one lipstick or that one bag. Of course, you as an individual may not change the entire thing that happens there, but what makes it different is multiple such people coming together and looking for alternate options will only let the brand know that, okay, I think we should start considering other options because people are more sensitive to it, right?
Exactly.
Whatever is best possible by us. And so congratulations on all that you've been able to do, Alok. Congratulations to HSI
Thank you so much.
and all the organizations. I'm very, very proud of all that you've been able to achieve even during the COVID-19 time. And I must say that every time there's a crisis, one of the organizations which I know for sure is more busy than ever is HSI. Of course, along with the other names as well, it's not only HSI, but HSI has, given the presence and given the background more involved, bring volunteers together. So I think we can have this as final bit of the conversation where you talk about all that you've been able to do during COVID-19 in such a short time, and in such innovative ways, making short films, making it more interactive.
Yeah, so initially when the COVID thing happened, we immediately worked with our partner organization, People for Animals, to work with the government to ensure that veterinary supplies were essential supplies. Because if that was shut down, then all the animals would suffer. And most of us did not realize that this would go beyond March 31st, because initially we thought all the state governments were saying March 31st lockdown. So veterinary supplies, veterinary medicines, veterinary clinics were opened. Then we saw a lot of pet shops being abandoned with animals inside. So we, in fact, reached out to every state government, every district collector to ensure that pet shops be, investigated and the owners be notified. Right now, unfortunately, there's not enough place to rescue all the animals. And because it is such a contagious disease, what the district governments have been able to do, a district administration, is that they've been getting the owners of the shops and telling them to ensure that the animals are taken care of, and nobody there's enough ventilation, food and water, and space for the animals. Apart from that, we've been feeding some animals through the help of partner organizations. And some of our programs in Uttarakhand, Lucknow, and Baroda, we have our own, where we do animal birth control. So there we work with communities. So the communities themselves are feeding the street animals. In places other than, for example, in Bihar, very few animal welfare organizations. Kerala, Hubli in Karnataka. So where there are various places where we've been asked by the governments for help, and of course by local organizations. So instead of us as individuals going out, we are trying to support government veterinary organizations, the government veterinary departments and government organizations, and local organizations, to give them mini grants to ensure that the animals are not starving on the street. But our biggest thing is to encourage people to take care of their animals and discourage abandonment. Because over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we've just seen so many instances of abandonment because of just rumors flying around on WhatsApp. I don't know if you've seen this picture that came in the Times of India from Madurai, where this journalist took a shot of two people from a family, a father and son, coming with their dog on a bike, and that animal being dropped onto the in a dump yard and going away. So we filed a complaint against that, and that has been the FIR has been filed. Unfortunately, the dog hasn't been found yet, so people are still looking for the dog. But I would, through Pet Talks, I would request anybody who's watching this to please share that pet animals, companion animals, do not transmit COVID, and we cannot get COVID from them. However, when we do take our pets outside, let's take it for a limited number of times, only for their necessary going out, for their defecation, and not for anything else. Do not allow them to play outside, and clean themselves and clean yourselves after coming back. Maintain hygiene, and that's all you need. Pet animals cannot transmit COVID. They need your support and love right now, not your fear and you freaking out.
Absolutely. And I think even, as humans, we should be more responsible every time we take them out. When it comes to their collar, when it comes to, dog's harness or the leash, it is important that you clean all of that, and of course groom the animal enough, because that is not in their control. Their harness or their leash is not in their control. That is in our control, right? It's about how we keep it clean. It's about the measures we take to ensure that the harness or leash does not carry anything. Let us hope that more people are sensitive to it. Let us hope that more people relate to what we're saying. And interestingly, I mean, thanks Alok for mentioning Pet Talks. I just want to make a point here that the reason we call it Pet Talks is because anything related to animals is very, very dear to us as an organization. Whether it's wild, domestic, dogs, cats, the kind of animal does not matter. So initially, when we want to call it Pet Talks, we're like, okay, does that come across as it's just about pets? It is not just about pets. It's just the idea we want to tell across that every animal can be looked at as a pet, right? The way you look at your dog and say, oh, this is my pet, you can also look at other animals the same way, because they carry the same form of love. They carry the same form of innocence. Whether it's a dog, whether it's any other animal, it's the same, right?
Yep.
Thank you so much, Alok. As a final bit, I think if anybody wants to donate to HSI, is there an option where individuals can donate? And second, what are your next things that you're working on? Like, would you want to mention any of it?
We are afraid that, if anybody wants to donate, please, you can go to supporthsi.in if you want to donate monetarily. If you want to donate through kind, then we have, you can look us up on Donate Cart. And if you just type Donate Cart HSI India COVID, I think you'll find it on Google. So we are collecting food material for animals, to donate it to the government organizations, donate it to state government agencies. So, which is whether it's the animal husbandry or the municipality, it depends. And also the police. So the Kolkata police and the Kerala police have in fact asked us to help. So we will do that. Future projects, we I mean we work on long-term projects. So farm animal protection, whether it is working towards ending battery cages for hens, that is still there. Uh, Animal testing on vaccines is something that we are looking at now for the past couple of years. And wildlife, we are working on human snake mitigation projects. For example, how to, did you know that snake bites cause the maximum amount of human deaths in human-animal conflict? We always think elephants or wild animals, but it's actually the snake. So 50,000 there are about 1 million snake bites per year, and 50,000 human beings die because of snake bites. And a lot more snakes are also dead. But we are doing a pilot project in Mysore to see if simple actions like providing villagers torches or boots, protection boots, because they are always walking bare feet.
Yeah.
Those things can prevent snake bites and help not displace these animals. So these things, of course, will go on, but we are also afraid that, this COVID might extend for a longer period of time. So it might disappear in a few months. Hopefully we are able to overcome it, but it may come back again. So the long-term things of it are that we've worked with the government. We are urging the government, in fact, to shut down wet markets in India. I know that Wuhan and all the wet markets around Southeast Asia are into a lot of news because of their presence. But in India too, pet markets and live markets, live animals markets where slaughter is done, are actually mixed. And that is a huge danger for the hygiene of anybody. Not only us as customers, but also customers or consumers, but also for the workers there.
Right.
They have no protection, no gears. They're barefoot, bare hands, and mixing of wild. For example, in Mumbai, Crawford Market, there are pet shops, wild bird stores, exotic bird stores, and just behind that there is a slaughterhouse. So there is no demarcation. And these are completely illegal. It's not that they're legal. So we are urging the government to shut these illegal shops, ensure that all the law, we have the best laws of the world actually. It's just that they're just not implemented.
Right.
We are an over legislated country and under implementing country. So if these laws tried to get, had to be implemented, we would actually have good practices. So if our slaughterhouse rules, our food safety and standard rules, and our other animal protection rules were followed, then this country would be very different. So we are urging we've actually written to the Prime Minister of India to ban wet markets in India. So we will be following up with that. That is a long-term thing to prevent any further pandemic.
Interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all this information, Alok. I hope to have all the people who are listening to this go and follow HSI for all the work the organization is doing. Let us do our bit. If not anything, let us share this information with our friends and family to make sure that people are more aware. And we will stay connected. Alok, anything that we could do together, we've always done, and we will continue to. Congratulations on all the great work you've been doing. Congratulations on all the things that you've been able to achieve. It's great to see that.
Thank you, Shruti, and I'm so honored to be part of Pet Talks, and thank you for having such a platform where we can talk about so many things without any inhibition. So thank you for giving a platform to the voice of animals.
Absolutely, my pleasure. And that's the whole idea of this platform, that animals and anything related to animals is generally taken as a back step for most shows. So for us, this is our world, right? We are the voice for them. So
thanks, Shruti. Thanks so much.
Take care, Alok. Stay connected.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Share
Stay
your
safe.
research with as many people as we know.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.